I've been building these raised vegetable garden beds. Just a couple of things about the beds themselves here. They're 18 inches tall, built with 2x4s and 4x4 pressure treated wood. A couple of years ago, we helped somebody build some beds very similar to this where they used galvanized steel sheets. We liked the idea, but we didn't like the galvanized steel. It has very sharp edges when you're cutting it. It's hard to cut. You have to use a metal grinder. Makes a lot of noise and just a general work problem. The other thing with the galvanized steel is that it's very shiny, and this is right across from the house. You come around the driveway. We didn't want this glaring, shiny galvanized steel reflecting at us. So I did a little bit of research and I found these polycarbonate roofing panels. Everything looks like they'll be just as strong as the galvanized steel. It's got this ribbing in it. And unlike galvanized steel, this will never rust. Galvanized steel, when it's in the ground next to very acidic type soils especially, begins to rust out maybe in a few years. So this should outlast the wood here. For these beds, even though they're 18 inches deep, which is deep enough for most vegetables, I'm digging out deeper just to give the good root zone. I've laid out the trench where the next bed will go. My first step with that, because I want all these to be lined up with each other, I lay a 2x4, 12 foot long, along each end of the existing bed. So that shows me where the ends of this next bed will go. And since the beds are 4 foot wide and almost 4 feet between them, I know that the corner post will go about where the end of the 2x4 is, right there on this inside of it. I've already nailed together the side pieces for the beds. I laid these out on the carport floor where it's nice and flat. The 4x4 post on the ends and in the middle here are cut to 18 inches height, which is the height of the beds. And the 2x4s that connect are 2x4 by 12s that I've cut to 143.5 inches. And the reason I did that was I wanted the distance from this post to this post on the inside to be exactly 65 inches. Because with the corrugated roofing panels, it makes a really nice fit up against there. You don't have to do anything to stop your soil from coming through. We'll show that as we get this bed under construction. My first step is just putting the panels approximately where they go. Because my ground's fairly level, they're actually staying up on their own. And then I'm actually getting another piece of 2x4 and laying underneath those end panels, so it gives me a solid surface I can work on. For each end of the bed, I have 2x4s that I've cut to 45 inches long. That fits in between the little tongue of 2x4 that sticks out of the 4x4 on this side. I'm going to attach these at right angles. I'll use a square to make sure they're at right angles to that. I'll attach both of these boards to one side of it. Then I'll pull the other side in and attach it, and that'll give me the frame. that frame's complete now. I'll use the 2x4s to line it up with the other beds, get the 2x4 out from underneath it here, and then I will take and level it up by digging under the corners that are too high. If I have a low corner, I may put a rock underneath it, kind of dig out the inside a little bit better. And then when I get all that done, I'll start putting the polycarbonate panels on the sides. I have that frame leveled up now in all directions. It's basically supported just by the corner 4x4 post. Actually, on one corner, I ended up digging a little bit too far down. There's pretty solid ground underneath there. I have different size rocks around. I was able to find one that would fit perfectly up underneath it to keep it level. The side rails and the center 4x4 post, if you notice, do not even touch the ground. That is okay with this design. Once I get the sides on here and start putting topsoil in here to filling it up, the soil will flow up underneath those rails and under those posts and end up supporting the entire structure, making it one solid piece. I'm using these polycarbonate roofing panels for the sides of my garden beds. They're corrugated, and by putting them vertically, I actually get a little bit of strength of the ribs themselves, holding back dirt. Cut these 18 inches length. These panels have a marking that this is the outside and this would be the inside, especially like for a roofing application. I can't tell that there's any difference in color on either side of it, but I'm always keeping it outside to the outside of the bed just in case there's any inconsistent fading or anything like that. It won't be obvious. When I designed these beds, I laid out that this is 65 inches across here. And the way I did that was I took the panels and put up against here. If I put it this way, any dirt that pushes up against that plastic basically compresses that flange up against the post. If I had it mounted the other way where that flange goes towards the outside, dirt that gets down between the post and that plastic will push down and push a gap through there and open up and let the dirt out of the bed. I've got my panels all cut to length so they overlap. And so now I'm ready to start attaching them to the frame itself. There's this label on the outside. I remove it. I found if I don't, I can't get it off after I've got it screwed into place. And I'm simply putting the panels so they're about flush with the top bar and that they press up against the 4x4 and then on the end there. I'm attaching them with these 3/4 inch stainless steel lath screws. The plastic panels are supposed to be pre-drilled before you put a screw into them. These little screws actually have a drill point on the end of them, so I can do all this in one step. And one thing I'm doing is when I'm attaching them, I'm stepping down at least about 1.5 inches from the edge of it because I want the screw to have enough panel above it to spread the stress out so it won't rip out when it gets all the weight of the soil pushing out against this. And then I don't have to have a screw at every single corrugation. The dirt's going to push this panel up against the rail. So I can go about 2 corrugations over, put them at the top along the bottom panel. I leave the last bit unattached. Take my next panel, make sure the overlap's right, and then all the way down. Right here I have the cut edge and I have the manufactured straight edge. I'm making sure the manufactured edge is against there. I'll continue working around. That section is done. I'll cap this with 5/4 inch decking boards like the other beds, and this bed will be ready to start putting dirt in about half an hour.